Welcome to today's episode, the podcast where we discuss the most recent installments of a different series every show. Today, that's Doctor Odyssey, a show starring Joshua Jackson that premiered on ABC September 26th. It's a medical drama. It takes a doctor and sticks him on a cruise ship.
Let's see how well you know Joshua Jackson, because I have 3 truths and 1 lie here. All are kind of about the show, or really about him. And I want to see if you can guess what the lie is.
Okay, is this about Joshua Jackson or like his role?
It's about him.
Okay, go ahead.
So the first one is he's cast in the 6th film in the Karate Kids franchise.
Yes,
Karate Kids
true.
Scheduled for 2025.
Yes.
I won't even, yes, that was true. Ralph Macchio is supposed to be turning. So they're taking both the Karate Kid from 2010 and the 80s, and they're doing a crossover. I want to see that.
Well, because of, obviously, the Netflix show. That's what caused
Ralph
Macchio
Cobra Kai.
to return.
In fact, they had to push it back because Cobra Kai's final season was initially going to interfere with the release date of that. So it's set for 2025. So you got that correct. Next one is Jackson's never been on a real cruise ship. Third one is he is an avid chess player and even lost against Ben Affleck at a charity tournament in 2015. And the last one is a board member of Oceana, a nonprofit focused on ocean conservation. So that is he's never been on a real cruise ship, the chess player one, or that he's on a nonprofit focused on ocean conservation.
He definitely feels like the type of person from everything that he's been in to be very socially conscious of like big issues. So that makes the last one seem true. The chess one seems like I would want it to be true. And then what was the second one?
The second one was he's never been on a real cruise ship.
That one seems false. I'll say that.
No, that one is actually true. They filmed everything on LA sound stages, recreating sets. In fact, Philippa Sue also said that she's never been on a real cruise ship. So the actual false one was the avid chess player one.
Yeah.
But yeah, the last one...
That would have been my second guess. But again, I wanted it to be true. It sounds like it would be a cool story. And plus, like, what else does he have to do all day when he's in between takes but play chess?
Well, as you said, Joshua Jackson, he's an environmentalist.
Yes.
Huge on that. So how did you feel about this show in particular? Because the last thing you've seen Joshua Jackson in, I think, was Dr. Death, where he was playing a different doctor, one that was way less qualified.
He went from playing Dr. Death to then playing a lover in Fatal Attraction.
Yep.
And he kind of merges those into playing this character where he's playing a doctor again, and also he's got a romantic interest in Philippa Sue. I just want people to check their expectations at the gangway, per se, for this show, because it's not here to mess with the tide. It's the 3rd Ryan Murphy show to come out in the last month, right?
Actually, the 6th show to come out in the last 2 weeks.
Sorry, 3rd new show for him, right? Because Grotesquerie and also American Horror Story.
You had
Aaron Hernandez.
You had Monster Season 2 come out on the 19th. American Sports Story came out on the 17th. And then, 911 Lone Star the 23rd, 911 the 26th, Grotesquerie on the 25th, and then Doctor Odyssey on the 26th.
Wow. Okay, so they cast someone charismatic in Joshua Jackson. He's a fish out of water doctor named Max Bankman. Despite glowing credentials, he assumes the role of head physician on the Odyssey cruise ship, much to the chagrin of the 2 nurses, one of which is a nurse practitioner, which is like an elevated nurse. They have to go through extra testing, who've been at the job for years. And so Avery, who plays that nurse practitioner, feels like she should have been the shoo-in for the job. The previous doctor, if you're curious, Dr. Campbell, had been fired because he had misdiagnosed some sort of bacterial infection as appendicitis. And so that had caused there had been a breakout on the ship, and they had to give a bunch of free tickets away. And the ship's captain, played by Don Johnson, did not feel like employing him any longer would be advantageous for that crew. Now, this is about, I just want to say, it's like 20% Grey's Anatomy. So we do get some medicine there, 70% Love Boat, and then 10% White Lotus.
Joshua Jackson, he said himself that they took liberties with this TV show. It's funny because his brother is an actual doctor, so he had to consult him on Dr. Death and Doctor Odyssey. But yes, Don Johnson, talking about the White Lotus comparisons, called this show the White Lotus on a ship.
You remember when we did the Dr. Death podcast, and I released the tweet where it had a picture of Joshua Jackson, just like, I think he was in someone's like back, and he was messing with the spine, and I think he was just grinding it.
Right.
Because that doctor was horrible and like left people incapacitated. And I think I tweeted something like, you got to get the cavity out, or something, like trying to defend the doctor as a joke. And then Joshua Jackson replied being like, that's not funny.
But then
that's my Joshua Jackson.
He had a laughing face.
Yeah, no, I think he was like probably on a plane somewhere and he just saw the tweet and he was like, yeah. But this one, he's a much better doctor. That's the good thing. As far as cruise ships go, they feel like we don't do a lot of shows about them. Like we do more doctor shows. We just did the Brilliant Minds show.
Right.
But we don't do a lot of cruise ship shows unless you really think about it. Avenue 5 counts as a cruise ship show.
I mean, that was technically a spaceship.
Yes, but it's like it's supposed to be all fancy and glamorous. And what's his face is the guy. Hugh Laurie is the captain, but who's the one who was like fronting the cost for it?
Josh Gad, right?
Josh Gad, and his character was all about making money about all these like really fat passengers, kind of the Wall-E passengers, who are just there to be pampered. We also had that Doctor Who episode from like 2010 where it had a giant Titanic in the sky.
Yeah,
you remember that?
Right. And it was like a floating head that was managing the whole thing.
The Rubens in this episode, the ones played by not Molly Shannon, who played it?
Rachel Drash.
Rachel Drash and her
I think it's Tom McGowan, I believe is his name.
They reminded me a lot of the main characters from that Doctor Who episode. Then you also have Interstellar. You remember when at the very end of that, they kind of had a ship in the sky that had... So I'm basically saying...
A lot of space things.
A lot of spaceships. And then Captain Fall, of course. We did that show a while.
But that was animated, right?
Right. But it also dealt with a cruise ship.
He was the captain for it.
Yeah,
so yes.
But the last ones we've actually done was Death and Other Details, which was the Mandy Patinkin one.
Right, I didn't even remember that was on a ship, but you're right.
And then One Piece, which also has a bunch of ships because they're all on search for
trying to find the treasure.
The treasure, right. So it's not that unheard of to have cruise ship shows, not unheard of to have doctor shows, kind of unheard of to have them both merged together.
Right. So what's the driving force of the show? Because it's a case by week, but for this episode, what is the case?
It's about identifying the characters. There's a lot of stuff that happens in this first episode, but the main focal point is that Max Bankman has to get acquainted with Captain Massey, and he has to leave a good impression with Avery and Tristan, because Avery is competitive. She thinks that she would have been the best choice for the job. And Tristan, he is more competitive because he loves Avery, and he feels like Max Bankman is going to come in there and swoop her off her feet, which he does. So I guess he does have a reason to be, why Tristan has a reason to feel a little jealous at the start. But the biggest sin the show conducts deals with in its first episode is that it spends the first 5 minutes with the captain, Captain Massey, expositing how glamorous and prestigious, incredible this world is. He goes around, he knows every employee's name, he runs a tight ship, he's showing people how to fold the towels correctly. Like, it's named the Odyssey, and the entire ship or the parts that we see have like striped blue because of like that's being grease colors. So they spent some time on the presentation of this thing, and he goes on talking about how people have the best experiences of their life here. And then everybody gawks at the fact that they got a real life doctor to be the lead physician here. Like one of those really good doctors, the guy who went to Yale, the guy who invented the cleft palate procedure. Like the fact that he would even want to work here is just baffling to people. And that's the thing that I have the most issue with, because he comes on board and he's like, I just want to have a good time. That would be enough of a reason for me to understand why a doctor would want to be there, because he gets a great room, he gets to go to these amazing places, and all he has to do is treat a few patients every once in a while, and yet no one's buying it. In fact, Tristan is so suspicious that he eventually challenges him to a dance-off.
A dance-off, yeah, midway through. That was probably my favorite scene out of the whole thing.
The longest-running drama is between those two characters, and despite Avery having more reason to be upset with, I would feel like, Max, because of the competitiveness of their field. In fact, Max comes in there and he misdiagnoses a patient to start with, or at least starts to misdiagnose the patient. And that's where the experience that Avery has, having worked on a ship, knowing what iodine poisoning looks like, is able to teach him a thing or two.
That actually leads into my next question. There's a laundry list of things that you can say that were different between Max Bankman and Christopher Dunn from Dr. Death. But are there any similarities, any odd similarities when it comes to like confidence?
Just the fact that Joshua Jackson would choose to pick another doctor role so soon after playing a killer. Like, you're not looking for Dr. Death season 3. You don't want, after seeing Joshua Jackson play that other character, because that character was charismatic in a way, and he's playing similar here.
Right, that's what I was saying.
So it's a little scary that they would like, but at the same time, he's making dough. It's like, this is ABC money. So I think everybody here, I don't think this is a type of show where someone had a deep passion. I feel like it was more like an algorithm was like, doctor, cruise ship together equals dollar signs. You know, it's a glossy, it's there's a lot of random storylines that are in here, but they're not offensive. So like, a guy breaks his dick in this episode.
Yes.
A guy falls off a ship in this episode. A guy overdoses on shrimp in this episode, and the main character reveals that he had one of the first cases. I don't think he was the first.
I think he was patient 0.
They made him patient 0.
Yeah.
That's a weird thing to pull out of a hat, but yeah, he's the first case of COVID in the US. But yet it's so non-offensive in the way that it does it, because what happens to the guy who got his dick broken? They stitch him up. He's good to go. He's even sent to a sex therapist, because they have those on cruise ships now. A guy who falls off the ship, well, spectacularly, he's saved by the doctor. And even though only 17% of people usually do get saved, right? Or they even, I think they listed at 15% in the show. He's by the end of the episode perfectly fine.
How is he saved?
The doctor is sent out on a boat with the rest of the medical staff, and he jumps out. This is the middle of the night, mind you. They find him, and they bring him back to life.
Oh, so he died.
So he was like waving his arms, and that's when the doctor found him. But by the time he got him back on the boat, apparently he was knocked out. I'm not exactly sure how that happened, but then the overdose shrimp guy, I'm sure you're concerned about him. He gets treated and he's fine. All of these things resolve themselves within 5 minutes. So by the end of the episode, you just kind of, it's entertaining, but then you completely forget about it, because there's nothing like, no one's going to die.
Well, there's a couple things to that, because TV Insider mentioned some theories, and maybe this is the reason why everything worked out so well, because one of them was Dr. Max Bankman. He's in a coma. That was one of them. He was COVID patient 0, and really he's in an induced coma. The ship is a metaphorical space where patients struggle between life and death.
Okay.
Second one is he's dead in the afterlife. The Odyssey might be a ship in the afterlife, of the reference to heavens and angels that they talk about in the episode.
We do see him off of the Odyssey. I do want to point that out.
Yeah, he starts off in the apartment.
He starts off in an apartment. So this is a very intense coma.
Well, it's all a virtual reality simulation is the third, like Black Mirror.
That's what Don Johnson said at the beginning. He was like, one day we're all going to get replaced. And it is glossy enough, it's basic and bright enough where that could be an issue. But I guess this is the least Ryan Murphy type show that I've ever seen, where he's not doing some weird twisty thing to start with, at least. So
right,
I feel like maybe you've got something going there. Maybe by the end of this series, we're going to look at it quite differently. But this is the most 5 out of 10 tame, run of the mill show. It's just so, like I said, not boring, but completely forgettable. No one's going to win an Emmy from this. Not for the writing, not for the acting. It's got some on-running jokes, like also going to the point of him maybe being in a coma, because everybody seems to mention how handsome he is, how good at the job that he is. He's able to bring a dialysis machine aboard on his first day. I don't know like how he could afford to do all that. And then he's too moral to sleep with his coworker. So he's just like the perfect dude, I guess. And so that's what made me just think this is a show that's going to exist for people who just want to turn off their brains, right? And just enjoy watching. So if there is some big twist coming, then it will surprise me.
Well, it seemed to have the weirdest titles too, because like you're saying, glossy, right? Collider said Sexy Network TV is back when they did their review for this show. TV Line said Doctor Odyssey makes a steamy splash. And then ABC Los Angeles said Joshua Jackson set sail on a sexy adventure. So
think less Breaking Bad, more boat go brr.
They said it could be inspired by Homer's The Odyssey. That was the last theory that TV Line pointed out. Each character potentially represents a different archetype from the epic. This theory suggests viewers may see nods to mythological elements in grand quests.
They're searching for some deeper meaning. I did think because maybe international waters would play a factor in certain things, that maybe they could play on like what doctors are able to do in different places, or whether or not not someone's going to get arrested.
I wanted to get your opinion because it seems like you're saying they're kind of focusing a lot on the relationships. At least that's what it seems like the show is doing. And it turns out that aside from the two earlier shows that were given seasons made by Ryan Murphy this year, American Horror Story and Feud, he has two in the woodwork. One is called All's Fair. It's a Hulu legal drama. But the next one coming out in 2025 is American Love Story. So he has
two in the woodwork. Is that sorry, I got stuck on that.
Two in the work.
Two in the works.
Yeah, in works right now. Yeah, but American Love Story. So he's now made American Horror Story, American Sports Story, and now he's making American Love Story.
Yes, with Kristen Bell and Adam Brody, right? Yeah, gun to my head, I never would have known Ryan Murphy had anything to do with this. In fact, given Brilliant Minds starred one of his favorite people, like it's someone he's worked with before.
Right. Zachary Quinto.
And Scott Seiler from Heroes. I would expect that to be more than Joshua Jackson, because I don't think Joshua Jackson has been in anything that Ryan Murphy has done before.
The show had a surprising amount of hype going into it, and I think because of that Ryan Murphy, Joshua Jackson click, because it broke the record on YouTube with 77.8 million viewers. It set the record for the most watched trailer for a new broadcast TV show ever. And then ABC's most watched drama debut in 5 years with 4.2 million viewers. And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about a week ago with High Potential, where it just seems like ABC at this point, maybe the reviews aren't the best for it because it has a 5.4 on IMDb, doesn't even have a tomato meter, and it has a 36% audience score. But it seems like they're still able to get a huge amount of viewership for their channel.
Yeah, but it feels like they're following the algorithmic thing. Like stick Despacito in there with Bieber, and then have the doctors dance Goofy, and then have one of them start making out with the main girl. There's nothing deep about it. We did get to see the old 2004 Lost tracheotomy, immediate tracheotomy happen, which you see in doctor shows a lot. But it is always interesting because they didn't use a pen this time. They actually used the right tools to perform the tracheotomy. They didn't use anesthesia of any sort. And they did do a couple medical procedures. And there was one particular one where they were like, we don't have the ability to do an OR procedure here. And I was like, oh no, are they going to try to do something invasive? And instead it was just like cracking someone's back like a chiropractor. I would have to go back to that scene to understand why they were able to do it on a boat, and they wouldn't wait until, or if it was such a big emergency, just like take him back to shore or whatever. I don't even know where they are. Do they maybe that's also lending credit to the idea that he could be in a coma, because they never discuss the places. They just end up on a beach somewhere, and then they end up back on the cruise ship,
right?
Just in non-distinct location.
And it's only for a week.
Yeah, if every week's going to be something else, in a way that's sort of like Upload, because you're looking at a staff of people who are trained to be super attentive to all those rich assholes who are there to like get pampered. And yeah, it's kind of like Upload in that way.
I know that there's supposed to be a lot of guest stars as well. Joshua Jackson said he's been wanting to get Reese Witherspoon the most to make a guest appearance. And it seems like, I think because they worked together in like the Small Fires movie that came out in like 2019.
Okay.
But aside from that, I think that they're also trying to make this go multiple seasons, maybe like a 911 type of thing. And it seems like it's going to get it with all that it has. But do you have anything else to say?
With all that it has. Nope, that's it. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. That dance scene reminded me of Lovesick a little bit. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.